35 male, my wife 37 female, had an affair and I'm not sure about staying. My wife and I got married 10 years ago after KOing each other for 7 years and dating for about 2. We have one 5-year-old child. I don't think our relationship was ever perfect, but most of the time I thought things were pretty darn good, or at least fine. We didn't have as much fun time as I'd prefer during the relationship. After wife stopped working, I wasn't super satisfied with the distribution of household tasks, and after the birth of our child we struggled with all sorts of infant-related things, especially sleep issues. I consider these all acceptable. People's preferences for fun time changes over time, and I think everyone has some sort of disagreement about chores. However, things got somewhat worse in the last few years. Wife had an affair with a 23M from Canada. According to her, the affair ran from about April 2020 to September 2020. I found out mid-October 2020. The affair included a lot fun timiding and sending nude photos. I guess there were plans to meet, perhaps even including specific travel plans to a convention and getting together with other friends. But closure of US-Canada border put a stop to that. She met this guy online through an online game. I had played this game briefly with my wife a few years ago when it came out, but I didn't stick with it. Since our son was born 5 years ago, she had been playing this game quite a bit. When our sleep schedules were totally effed, she would play while breastfeeding and pumping, while I took care of sanitizing and supplementing donor milk, formula, and pumped milk. Eventually things calmed down and our son got on a sleep schedule. Then wife would play from about 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. most nights, occasionally as late as 4 a.m. I work 9-5 and usually go to bed about midnight, so I'm able to take our son when he wakes at 7 a.m. I feel like a complete idiot, because I didn't understand a few red flags. We always had open phones just out of convenience. I would ask her to read my texts and reply if I was driving, etc. at some point. However, she changed her phone password, and changed all her messages so they wouldn't appear on the lock screen. Somehow I didn't really think anything of it, and I didn't really have a reason to ask. I always thought affairs were something that would just never happen to us. She also asked to move some money into her old personal checking account, which has been sitting nearly empty since we combined our finances shortly after we got married. Again, no big deal. I considered it reasonable to diversify the finances. The thing that finally led me to suspect something was when I noticed her spending more time in the bathroom. At some point, she came out with red eyes a few times. When I asked about it, she had pretty nonsensical explanations for why she was crying. Around this time, she also said she was going to be on a Discord call with a mutual female friend of hers, but when I walked by her desktop on the way to the bathroom, I saw a 23M's name. It wouldn't have made think twice if she said she was calling him, but since it wasn't who she said it was, I began to wonder. So I reinstalled the online game and logged in and played a few times with her, and I began chatting with the friend group she had developed. I could write a whole post about these people and they've been the topic of a few therapy sessions, for sure. But the short story is that a few of them are real talkers, and over just a few days I basically got it out of one of them that wife was having an affair with 23M. I sat down with wife and asked what was going on. I got some sort of runaround about an inappropriate joke from 23M and she was sort of scolding him for that. I pressed more that evening, and wife finally came clean about the whole thing. At the same time, she also informed me about some important parts of her past I never knew about, that I will mention later. We both started individual therapy and couples therapy basically immediately and have been working on things since. My wife told me what the timeline of the affair was, to the best of her memory. They'd been friends about 2 years. The affair ran from about April to September. The reason she was crying was that 23M began flirting with another woman closer to his age, and wife felt very hurt by that. 23M felt the relationship with my wife wasn't that serious and that he was just following her lead and having some fun. And he wanted to give her some kind of self-esteem boost. On the night I found out about the affair, my wife also revealed that had various abusive relationships in college, about 15 years ago. The worst one was before I met. I was vaguely aware of him, but apparently the abuse was a lot worse than was ever revealed to me. I guess she brought this up at this time because she felt it was relevant to why the affair happened. I'm really not sure. In therapy, we've had discussions that past abuse doesn't excuse cheating. I struggle to know what to make of this. But also I'm really hurt that she never shared that with me, especially she talked about those things with 23M. A few weeks after the affair discovery day, wife revealed that she had cheated in past relationships also. Wife was engaged to be married about 3 years before we started dating. She canceled that wedding just a few weeks before the day. I remember that distinctly since I was invited, and we were friends at the time. I learned that the reason she canceled the wedding was that she had fun time with my then roommate who was, obviously, not her fiancé. I then found out she cheated in a few other relationships after that, and I then connected a few other dots. When we first met in college, she offered to make out with me even though she was dating someone at the time. I declined. I still have the AIM chat log for this offer from way back in the day. This is something like 5 or 7 years before we started dating. I know she has recently lied to me about the number of partners she has had. And it bothers me that she's still lying about these things, even though they are ancient history. I do have concerns in the back of my mind that she has cheated on me before, although she swears she hasn't. Initially, my wife wanted to remain friends with her affair partner, and that went on for a couple of months. She believed she could set reasonable boundaries and stick with them. The combined effort of our therapists apparently talked her out of that, and we cut ties with 23M, using a fairly unmodified stock letter we found online. However, there was some additional letter writing over the next 6 months. It all went through our therapists, and I read wife's messages and his responses. It was still incredibly painful, and she put a huge amount of effort into these couple of messages, so that she could give him a goodbye that respected the friendship that they had. That letter writing concluded in April of this year. Since then, I think wife considers the matter closed and believes that things are back to normal. I don't feel great yet though. When we started dating, we began having fun time after maybe 2 months. It was great, and I hadn't had much experience in that area. After dating for about a year, she wanted to begin abstaining from fun time until we were married. Of course, when your partner doesn't want to engage in something, you accept that and go along with it. At the time, I felt that pressing for reasons why would be like challenging the request, and would be inappropriate. Obviously, no one likes a fun time pest, so we didn't discuss it much. We actually ended up abstaining from all fun time conduct until our marriage about 2 years later, although I think we probably had a couple of slip-ups in there. But after the wedding, the fun time never really returned. Even on our honeymoon and a few nice vacations when I thought things might happen, it didn't. So we were having fun time maybe once every other month at that point. Then it dropped off to perhaps a couple of times a year. I know we went greater than 1 year at a time without fun time a few times. At some point we decided to have a kid, and after being off birth control for a few months, we went through the motions. After she got pregnant, we didn't have fun time for a very long time. We tried again for a second child during the affair and had a miscarriage shortly before I found out about the affair. I was sort of accepting about the lack of fun time and other forms of intimacy in our relationship, because other role models in my life who were married seemed to have fun timeless marriages. I've only had one partner before my wife, and I know she's had about 20, so I figured maybe she got it out of her system in her youth. But I'm really hurt that the affair had her so excited to do fun time things with this other guy. I'm also hurt because even when we were abstaining, she still talked about how excited she was to be married and have fun time with me, and I was really looking forward to that aspect of our relationship. We can't effectively discuss this, even in couples therapy, because she shuts down discussions about fun time by asserting you're a guy who only thinks about fun time, and a therapist seems to largely acknowledge that fun time is an important part of a relationship but never pushes the discussion. After asking and being turned down many times, I eventually stopped asking. Even more troublesome than the affair is a feeling that I can't trust my wife and that she has never really confided in me. She has shared her past traumas with 23M, and I think her past infidelity. Is it reasonable to expect those disclosures from my wife? What things should you never tell your spouse about yourself? I've looked back at old chat logs from when we were deciding if we were going to date or not. During those conversations we directly discussed her canceled marriage, and she was unambiguously and boldly dishonest about that. Just last week she admitted to having anxiety even as a child, but she deliberately hid that from me because she feels no one likes an anxious person. And she directly said that she didn't tell me about her past because she thinks I wouldn't have married her if she did. In general, I think she believes it's okay to hide things or lie if you're doing it to protect someone. She acknowledges that the affair wasn't okay, but she felt it was okay to hide it because she knew that it would hurt me. I bring this up more because I'm concerned about the attitude than the anxiety itself. But at the same time, our couples therapist suggests that one person can't be everything to someone, which apparently means that full disclosure about past trauma isn't to be expected between spouses. In therapy, we've discussed the reasons this happened. Wife felt unhappy in the marriage and believed it was over. I believe the separate bank account was perhaps run away to Canada money, but she stated it was money for her to restart her life when I found out and divorced her. Why was she unhappy? The most concrete answer she has for that is that she didn't feel seen. But now I ask how things are going now, and she says everything is great and she's happy in the marriage. I honestly don't feel like I've changed that much on a day-to-day basis. Both of us have physical touch as one of our love languages, but there's not much physical intimacy. Our last therapy session we discussed how she doesn't like to be touched sometimes. There's not much fun time, although shortly after the affair we had a few months of regular fun time, much more than any other time in our relationship. But I think maybe she didn't enjoy it, although she insisted she did. We do cuddle sometimes when she's okay with that, mostly on our once per week date night, which is watching TV shows from when our child falls asleep at 9 p.m. to about 11:30 p.m. when I have to go to bed and she gets back on her computer, or maybe joins me. I'm not really satisfied with our date night. I recognize it's hard with a child that can't be left alone and during a pandemic. Oftentimes, on Wednesday, wife will point out that we hung out on Monday or Tuesday, so that counted as date night. Or she's got an online event or plans with an online friend, so we can push date night back to another day. I'm fine with rescheduling, but it makes me feel like I'm not a priority. Gaming on our separate computers or watching TV shows isn't really filling my love tank. She doesn't like doing stuff outside and doesn't have interest in board games or those kind of face-to-face interaction ideas. But at the same time, I don't have any other ideas of what might be fulfilling for me, so I can't put blame on her for that. I work 9-5 from home, usually locked in my office to keep distractions down, but I do usually come out to make lunch for everyone and deal with various issues with the kid when wife has to go to the bathroom, or it's something that requires greater than one adult to deal with. The interruptions do add up to a lot of time though, and when the day is done, wife is exhausted from basically just watching the kid, so there's always dirty dishes and meals to prepare, etc. From her perspective, she's been harassed by the kid all day, so at 5 p.m., it's my turn to watch him. I totally get it, but it also means there's not much relaxation time for me. My therapist pushes hard on the expectation that a stay-at-home parent should be able to take care of meals and laundry, in addition to the child, to balance a working partner. I don't know where to draw that line. I grew up in a family with a working father and a stay-at-home mom of 3 kids. Both parents worked really hard, but I know my mom had the brunt of indoor household tasks. And it's hard to say because, yesterday, wife cleaned the birdcage 1 cockatiel and folded a load of towels and did half the meal prep all in one day. But today she napped all day while child watched Minecraft videos while I worked. So there are good days and bad days. Wife's therapist recommended she see her normal doctor for an SSRI and she started that a month ago. She says it makes her less anxious and she says she seems to feel better in general, but it also makes her sleepy and she kinda just cares less about things in general. Obligations like date night, hanging out with her other online friends, and household chores just matter less. No idea what to make of that. It's been 8 months now since the reveal of the affair and things have settled down. I'm quite sure she's not cheating now. She says she's happy. We don't fight, and we work together pretty well to take care of our child. Division of household tasks isn't great, but I don't really care enough to make a huge issue out of it. Things are basically working, and we've hit a steady state she's happy with. I don't feel like things are particularly different now than they were before or during the affair, So I struggle to understand why she says she's been happy for the last 6 months, but wasn't happy before during the affair. I think maybe labeling herself as unhappy is just a way to justify the affair, but who knows? So I've been working on this with my therapist, and I'm trying to figure out if I feel like things are ever going to feel better in this relationship. I'm scared to cut it off, because it's going to be a nightmare to split assets and figure out what joint custody of our 5-year-old child looks like. I know sometimes people say that it's better for the child for the parents to be out of a bad relationship, but we're not constantly fighting, and I think we provide a loving home. So I'm not sure. I feel like I'm not crazily unhappy, I'm just floating somewhere a little lower than May. Should I end an okay thing for the hope of something good? I'm sorry this is incredibly long, I was concerned about leaving out important details, or misrepresenting something. TLDR, wife had an affair and then revealed she had cheated on other earlier partners. She revealed a history of trauma and abusive relationships. She wants to work on the marriage. The affair combined with other issues in our relationship has me wondering if I want to stay.